Okay. So we're going to flip to the next one. I'm going to flip to the. All right. I'm going to flip to that. Okay. What's that? You messed up. No, I know. I'm good. I got someone here taking care of me. Okay. So I'm going to start with my story. So I guess I want to caveat the story by saying this happened a long time ago. So the names have been changed not to protect the innocent, but just simply because I do not remember their names. So I was a kitchen boy at an all-girls camp. I was 16. There were over 1,000 girls and 6 boys. It was the most perfect job for a teenage boy, or so you'd think. So I got the job because my sister was a very popular camper and counselor at the Camp Nellie Huckins just outside of North Conway, New Hampshire, on Lake Ossipee. And she put a good word in for me, and so I got to go to this thing, to be a kitchen boy. I showed up at the place, and there were some downsides, right? I mean, we had to work hard. We had to, wash the dishes and wash the pots and pans and silverware for 1,000 people. We had to clean the kitchen and clean the floors and set up the dining hall so that it was all set for whatever activity was happening there. And we had to help the chef. Now, I put the quotes on because the chef was really, really good at using all the food, all of it. So, for example, true story, he made hot dogs one day for the campers, and then the next day, he made hot dog soup. Little hot dogs floating in hot dog broth. Delicious. So there were lots of benefits to being at this camp, obviously, and the biggest benefit was we were unicorns, right? Every girl in the place was looking at us. And that was pretty great for a 16-year-old kid to have this. Now, of course, some were too young, but some, the 15 to 17-year-old CITs which is counselors in training, and the counselors, they were our target market, right? And we had lots of fun events with them. So there was sanctioned on-campus events, and then there were some unsanctioned off-campus events. And the off-campus event is where I got to meet, again, Mary, I don't remember her name. Mary and I, one drunken night, had my first kiss. We made out. Mary and I made out for a while, and it was wonderful at this event. And our relationship, kind of went through some ups and downs. Like right after the event, we got back to the camp, and she sort of stumbled off. And the first thing she said to me was, "That was really fun, Greg." My name is Gary. But we survived that. In fact, we had many experiences where we would go to the abandoned BB gun range, and we'd lie down on the mouse-eaten mattresses there and work on some of the bases. And it was great. It was great. I had a great time with Mary. The issue wasn't the girls, it was the boys. Now, the boys were all locals, townies, one might say. And they had been at the camp for several years, and so they kind of knew the drill. And I was from Boston. I am from Boston. I was going to a private school. I read books. They were not so much. Their big thing was, and I'm going to cue you in a second, their big thing was driving drunk and practicing, telling everybody the story about how often they had driven drunk. Here's an AI artist rendering of this event and these people. Other way, one job. There we go. Again, artist rendering, AI, but this is kind of what they look like. So here's the thing. Because I wasn't part of the group, because I wasn't a local, there was one guy that kind of just didn't like me. And I would say that he didn't like the cut of my jib. And I'd say that he didn't like me because I use expressions like the cut of my jib. And he decided I was not going to be, he didn't want me to be there. He wanted to like run me out. But again, I don't know if I mentioned, I was kissing a girl, so I'm like, that was okay. But he decided I wasn't going to be the guy, and so he really made it his job to make sure that I was miserable. And so he did things, like the first time we were going off campus to one of these parties off campus, and we all got in the car, his car, And we went up to the office, and he said, everybody needs to get out to go to the office to sign out. So I got out of the car, and as soon as I did, he slammed the door and gunned the car and drove off. Now, being a smart kid, I picked up a rock and threw it at the car, and being a baseball player, I hit the car, and him being who he was, he screeched to a halt, came running back, went up right into my face, cue the artist rendering, and no. And I wasn't the svelte cut person that you see here today. I was a little bit of a scrawny kid, and I was a lover, not a fighter, so I backed off. But what Biff did was he decided that it would be, again, I don't remember his name, so I'm calling it Biff. He decided that he was going to make sure everyone else was against me as well. So I had a roommate, I got along with him very well, but he told the roommate, I don't remember his name, he said, if you're roommates with him, you're kind of persona non grata. Again, he didn't use that language because it wasn't that. But he made it clear that if he was in my room, he wasn't going to be cool. And so I called him Spineless Joe. See if you can do it right this time. Oh! There we go. Okay, this is Spineless Joe. Anyway, artist rendering. So you can go back to the last one, and so you can scroll to the next one, other way. There we go. So anyway, Spineless Joe moved out of my room, and throughout the summer they weren't very nice. They decided to do things. There was one time they took a whole garbage pail full of water and leaned it up against my door, so when I opened the door, it flooded my room. They borrowed stuff from me and then didn't give it back. They stole some things that were important to me. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, I was kissing a girl a lot. And so in this sort of teen boy calculus, it was a win. So at the end of the summer, I decided that it was going to end my tenure as a kitchen boy. I said goodbye to all the girls, blowing them a kiss. I said goodbye to Mary, giving her a kiss. And I said goodbye to, when my parents came to pick me up, I got in the car, I locked the door, I rolled down the window, and I rolled up my middle finger and said goodbye to Biff, Spineless Joe, and the rest of the Kitchen Boy kids. Thanks so much. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we're going to have Rich come up and tell his story. So let's give a big hand for Rich, everybody. All right. And we're going to thank Rich because he did not bring his flute this time.
I know. I need slight altitudinal adjustment. I think that's good. A wee bit.
A wee bit higher? It's not that one, it's this one. Or not. Oh, wait. There we go. Nope.
So many
You're
knobs.
just going to have to go that.
Okay, I can do it. So, for 17 years, I was a fourth grade teacher at a public school in San Francisco. Thank you. We have some educators here representing the now victorious UESF today. But back in those days, as an elementary school teacher, you pretty much taught all of the subjects. And the subject that mattered most to me, the subject that I really cared that the kids learned, was about compassion and empathy. And it started every morning. Every morning we'd come in and 30 kids, I'd circle them up on the rug and I'd pull out my guitar, which I almost brought tonight, pull out my guitar and we'd sing songs that I wrote for them, songs like the Gandhi song and the Bear song and Good Morning to the Sun. So we'd sing, and then for our talking circle, we'd pass a talking stick, but the talking stick was a fat and friendly black and white rat named Jupiter. So we'd pass Jupiter around and each child would just cuddle Jupiter and tell us how they were feeling and if they had any scary dreams or something exciting happened to them. And just weaving this web of compassion and empathy. And that's really what it was all about, because if you were teaching, you weren't doing it for the money. That's not how it was working. In fact, for 12 of those 17 years, I lived in a basement studio where I could not fully extend my arm past here. And when it rained, mushrooms would sprout out of the rug. So that's how it was. The payment was in these miracles of connection that you got to see. I got to watch, sometimes a child connecting with me, that was delightful, or a child connecting with another child, or a child connecting with the trees across the street at Lake Merced, or a child connecting to their deepest part. So that's how we got paid, those sort of connections. And I could tell you hundreds of those stories, but now I want to tell you about what happened once with a little girl named Lily. And 22 years ago, back in 2004, I had this wonderful girl. She was just a skinny little wisp of a thing, but as slight as she was of stature, she was mighty of spirit. Lily just had these big eyes and this radiant smile. And her parents had come from Ireland, and they were just solid, loving, salt of the earth type people. And they needed to be, because life, in its inscrutable wisdom, had dealt Lily an unfair hand. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So Lily's little body hurt her a lot and often didn't cooperate with what she wanted it to do. And she must have felt it, but in that year, I don't think any of us saw Lily have a boo-hoo, poor me moment. We definitely never saw her take it out on another person. And I had a pretty vigorous fourth grade. Every Friday we went across the street to Lake Merced and played capture the flag through the forest. And every Wednesday we'd go down to the playground and play a vigorous game of hockey that would make a Canadian proud. And then every day we also did some Qigong. And Lily did all of those things as well as she could. And then one day, it was at the end of recess, and I was sitting behind my teacherly desk, and I was assembling the things I needed for the next lesson, and that recess bell came that still gives me tremors of PTSD. It's like a ringer and a buzzer at the same time. And I looked up, and at the door, there was Lily by the door. And she had this triumphant grin, and she was huffing and puffing, breathing hard. And she walked right in, she walked around the desk, and she walked right up to me in my chair. And she said, hey, Mr. Rich, give me your hand. And again, I was a little distracted, papers, clips, blah, blah, blah. I put out my hand in the thumb wrestle position, which is something we did a lot. And Lily said, no, like this. And she took my hand and she pressed it against her chest. And she said, it's my heart. Can you feel how fast it's beating? I've never made it up the stairs that fast before. And it was so beautiful, but I'm ashamed to say I was mortified. And I tried to pull my hand away, and this little featherweight mote of a girl suddenly had superhuman strength. She would not let me pull my hand away. She had vice-like grip. And I can tell you, what I was afraid of was, we can call it decontextualized optics. The door to my classroom was always open. There were kids walking by, there were teachers walking by, there were parents walking by, and there were administrators walking by. And the thought of a passing glance into this room and seeing Mr. Rich with his hand pressed flat against the chest of a little girl, I was afraid that might not play so well. So I was terrified. I was trying to pull my hand away. But she wouldn't let me. She just kept smiling and saying, feel it, feel it. And here's a racist stereotype against the Irish. She let go with this sassy cackle that only an Irish person can do. It's kind of a mixture of a pirate, a witch, and a hobbit. Just, ah! She was delighted that I was squirming and trying to escape. But she just kept saying, feel it, feel it. And it was at that moment that I surrendered. And I just said, get my cell ready at San Quentin. I don't care. I don't care. This is the most innocent thing in the world. This little girl who's been born with a body that doesn't cooperate has just had a personal best of what her heart can do. She's proud of it. She wants to share it with me, and she trusts me enough to share it with me. So I relaxed, and I felt Lily's heart. And we both agreed it was beating fast and it was beating strong, and we laughed and we celebrated the strength of Lily's heart. And then 2 days later, the coda, I was so touched by this, I did what I do, which is write a poem, and I wrote a poem about it, and I sent it to Lily's parents. We were friends, and it was a sweet story, a funny story, but also I kind of wanted them to hear about it from me first. So I sent him the poem, and that afternoon, Lily's mom came to pick her up after school, and she took me aside, and she had kind of a shining grin, and she said, Mr. Rich, it seems like our daughters subjected you to a bit of sexual harassment at the workplace. And then she just gave me a wink, and she said, could you do the girl a wee favor and not press charges? And I said, I won't if you won't. And that's the story of my memorable meeting with Lily's heart. I think there she is, little Lil. Not going to run away with the microphone this time.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Rich, everybody. So what a wonderful story. I mean, to be a teacher, I'm not that tall. Being a teacher in this area and this time is always hard, and it's so great to have a teacher up here telling us a story. Yeah, I love that. So one more hand for Rich. I want to read you something. One more hand. This is a little more than 1 or 2 sentences, but I'm going to read something that somebody wrote, which I like. I like this. I was on holiday in the U.S. from England and was wondering whether to find work in San Francisco and stay longer. I met a psychic who invited me to tea, and when I arrived, she said that she had just received a message from me, and it was written down like a poem, basically telling me to return to my homeland, for it was there that my dreams would come true. So I went back to the UK, and shortly after, I met an American man who I fell in love with, and we moved back to America. All right. So we're going to pull an audible. We're switching things up a little bit. We've had some little changes to the order here. So we're going to have Alex come up and tell a story. So she's in the second half, so you got to swipe all the way over to Alex. Bring up Alex. There we go. Alex, come on up. Oh no, one more time. She's still walking here. Alex, come on up. Woo! Alex, everybody. So what I love about Alex's story is, first of all, she brings the age group down significantly of all the people that are telling stories, and second of all, it's like now she's not a Gen Zer, but probably a millennial. Am I right, millennial? You're a cusper. So some of the lingo that she's bringing on, you can just put that in your mental. But here's the thing, what I do for a living is I do market research with kids, teens, and young adults, so Gen Alpha, Gen Z, millennials, and I will tell you, do not use their vernacular, okay? Especially when you're talking to them. It's so cringy, they'll die, you'll die, it's bad. Don't do it. Anyway, big hand for Alex, that was a great story. Okay, I like this one. They got a hinge call. You may know what Hinge is. Who knows what Hinge is? Yeah, I'm just making sure. Okay, there's all the single ladies. A Hinge call in the Costco parking lot that led to a tryst 3 times. Okay. Yeah, hook up tryst. Isn't that how you say it? Tryst? Hook up. All right. I read books. That's right. Okay, great. So we have, you're going to go all the way back to Paula. Oh, wait, one more. Okay, one more. That's it. All right, give it up for Paula, everybody. Woo! Paula's the one that gave me the Gary patch that is now on my jacket because it was way too hot in here. Anyway, okay, here we go. Here. Okay.
Okay.
Take it away, Paula.
Oh. So it was 1994. I just moved to LA. I'd had a baby and I was out jogging. And I'm not a jogger, but I had to get the baby weight off. So I'm jogging and this guy passes by me and I think, oh, I think I know that guy. So I turn around and I start kind of jogging, trying to catch up with him. And then I have this moment where I think, oh shit, that's Alan. I don't think I want to reconnect with Alan. So I met Alan in 1987. I went to Milan, Italy. I was going to try modeling. I couldn't really get through fashion college. I went to fashion school and I was learning how to sew and design, but I was really shit at that. So I thought, oh, the next thing is I'm tall and people always said I look like Brooke Shields with my eyebrows. Maybe I'll give this modeling thing a try. I got a contract for an agency. I sold my car and I bought a one-way ticket. I was 21. So I get to Milan, we're living in a pension, there's people from all over, models and photographers, and the whole thing about Milan is that if you want to make it in the fashion business or in the modeling, you go to Milan, because there you can meet photographers and they can take your pictures and you can build a portfolio of work. So that was the reason to go. If you want to make money, you go to Germany or you go to Japan where you can get jobs doing catalogs, and that pays a lot of money. But this was all about editorial, being in Vogue, being in Elle, getting jobs in the fashion runways, all that. So that's what I thought I was going to do. And in this pension that I shared, there was this photographer who was also trying to make it. He was 30 years old. His name was Alan, and we kind of hit it off. And there were a group of other girls there. There was Bettina, and there was Agneta, and there was Anita. And Agneta had come from Stockholm, and she was 14. Her parents let her go, and I kind of took this little girl under my wing, and we would take walks around the pension in Milan, and she was pretty tall, but she had this long white hair. And I would kind of walk with her, and these guys would go, ciao, bella, ciao, ragazza. And she would say, oh my God, what are they saying? Are they talking to me? I'm like, no, girl, they're talking to me. Just come on, keep it together. Let's just walk to the next appointment. So I thought the whole world was like waiting for me to arrive. And when you're new there and you call every morning to your agent, and they will give you a list of things to do for that day, like go see clients, go see photographers, go see designers, and these are called your go-sees. So in the beginning, when you're first there, they want to get the new meat, they want to see the new girls. So I was pretty busy. But then I started to notice there were certain things that were a little weird. Like on Fridays, they would have these parties called Bubbles and Bubbles, which is basically like you go and you hang out with the owner of the agency named Luca or something like that, more like Jeffrey Epstein type thing, right? So you go to these hot tub champagne parties. They're encouraged. They're not mandatory, but they're encouraged. And I was like, oh no, I'm a girl from Dallas. I was a little naive, but I could see the writing on the wall. So I was like, I'm not having any of this. So over time, I wasn't getting any jobs, you know? And then there was these other girls that started getting covers and like the magazines, and they were booking the shows. And I was like, those bitches are having sex with those guys. They are getting jobs. But I was determined I have principles. So, but Alan and I started this friendship. He was a photographer. He would take pictures of me, and, you know, it was a really nice friendship. But then in August, everything shuts down, and people go on holiday. So we got kicked out of our pension, so I had to get a boyfriend. So I found a guy named Massimo, who was an Italian playboy, and he had a bad case of scalp psoriasis, but he took me to Ibiza for the month. So I was fine as long as I didn't run my fingers through his hair. And we made an agreement with all the other people in our group that when we come back in September, we're going to get an apartment together because it'll be cheaper. So I come back in September. My agency fires me because I'm difficult to work with. I won't take my clothes off. I won't do lingerie. And Yeta's not getting work because I'm kind of being a baby mom, you know, mothering to her. So before you know it, there's 5 of us living in this apartment and 2 of us are unemployed. So Alan who I've come to learn, like I think he has more feelings for me than I realized, because he started like giving me money, and he was covering my rent, and before you know it, I had my own twin bed, but I couldn't pay my rent, so then I just shared a twin bed with him. It was kind of a nice arrangement. It was a little quid pro quo type thing, and I have to say also, like, the shit that was going on at home, my mother was going through a bankruptcy, her and my father were going through a horrible divorce. I had a sister who ran away from home with a midget cowboy named Pee-wee with a gold tooth. My other sister had just was locked up in the psych ward. So I was gonna do anything I could to not leave. So that I did. So every Thursday was the farmer's market, and Alan would go to the farmer's market, and he would come home with these like delicious roast chicken. And he would bring me the roast chicken, and I'd still be in the little twin bed that we shared. And I would just be eating a chicken leg, and I would just let him feel my tits. That was kind of the agreement, was, you know, I'll eat the chicken, you can feel my tits, and then it's a win-win. But I mean, just imagine me like laying in this twin bed, I'm covered in chicken grease, and this guy's like on top of me going, do you like that? How about this? How does this feel? I'm like, it's fine, just let me eat my chicken. And then he would leave little chocolates on my pillow, and you know, it was sweet. It was a nice arrangement. It worked for a while. You know, and the whole thing is like I have principles, right? Like I wouldn't go to the hot tub parties, but I'm letting this guy feel my tits for some chicken. So I eventually go home, and about 6 months later, it's my birthday, my 22nd birthday, and my mom says, I have a surprise for you. And it's like, it's Alan! Oh my God, great, he's here in my house. And he kind of thought this like titty chicken arrangement was gonna continue, and so I had to keep my door locked. Anyway, so as I'm running after this guy that I think is Alan, you know, I'm like, hey, I gotta catch up with Alan, and then I'm like, oh shit, I still owe him $500. So I turned around and I ran home, and I realized sometimes, you know, those connections, you don't really want to ever reconnect. Thanks.
That's Paula. I mean, we call her chicken tits, but that's just me. Wow, that's a story. Now, if you've been here for other Paula's stories, you've heard quite a lot of interesting things about her life. She's fantastic. So before we go on break, every month that we do this, we do a little giveaway. And I was giving away shirts, but I'm out of shirts. So instead, some of you know that we're moving, and I've gone through all of my stuff, and I have all this stuff. And there's some things that I thought maybe you guys might want. So just to give you perspective, and Lisa Corus knows this, when I was in my 20-somethings, I worked at J. Walter Thompson, and I didn't have any money, and I would create these books. They were called Funny to Me. And they were all the comics or things in the newspaper or whatever that I just found funny, and I put them together in a book and I give it to people for their presents. So I'm going to pick your name, and if your name comes up, you get to pick one of these books. Okay, where's that? Over here, 1 second. I know you're all excited. All right, let's have lovely assistant pick one out. There we go. All right, thank you. And we'll do one of the second one as well. We have Jen C. Jen C, raise your hand. Jen C. There we go, Jen. All right, Jen, you get to pick, congratulations. You get to pick 1, 2, 3, or 5. Pick one of those numbers. 5. Good choice. Good choice. Funny to Me 5. There it is. Funny to Me 5. Congratulations. Enjoy it. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. Let's give a big round of applause for the first 4 storytellers. Excellent. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes. There's bathrooms back there. There's drinks over there. And take it away. Okay, everybody, why don't we get started? All right. Welcome back to the second half of flight number 21, everybody. Big hand. The one thing I did forget to say, my wife pointed out, was the theme of tonight. Because we always do true stories based on a theme, and tonight's theme is Connections. So that's what the theme is, in case you didn't figure that out. Okay, so we're going to start off our second half with Sherry. I want everybody to give a really warm, welcoming round of applause for Sherry. Come on up, Sherry. All right.
Sherry, everybody, Sherry.
Oh, okay.
I've always had an awkward relationship with my brother. We called him Mac. He's my only sibling, 4.5 years my senior, although it seems more like 10 years. Before I was born, my brother begged Mom to give him a little sister, but when she did, he resented me. Each one of us thought the other one was the favorite child. Although we grew up under the same roof, we experienced life totally differently. He was the serious, responsible one, and I was the happy-go-lucky dreamer. We were like the Smothers Brothers. I was Tommy, and he was a dick. Just like in the song, he was the guy with a pin to burst my bubble. Any statement I made, he contradicted it. It was his job to make me afraid of the world around me. Like the summer when he warned me that in 2nd grade, all the kids fight each other, even the girls. I was scared to go back to school, but thankfully things were not like you said. Mac always found me really annoying, but I practically worshipped him, and I followed him everywhere. He did not like me going into his bedroom, so he placed a toy robot just inside the door. I'd walk in, see it, scream, and run. Sometimes he played nicely with me. He taught me Chinese checkers, tic-tac-toe, and hangman. But most of the time, he preferred coming up with ways to hurt me without getting into trouble. He turned on the water way too hot when he helped me wash my hands. He gripped my arm way too tightly during family portraits. He gave me Dutch rubs. We bopped each other over the heads with cardboard tubes and with balloons tied to a stick. The games he came up with were a bit on the sadistic side, like the one called Beat a Song on Sherry's Back. It was a slightly more violent version of Name That Tune. I got my turn, but naturally, my brother beat out his rhythms quite a bit harder than necessary. I took it, though, because at least he was interacting with me. We used to go get rat fakes out of the gumball machine at the Hunt's Corner Grocery. Do you remember those? They're about 1.5 inches tall, made of plastic, and they came in different colors. They had these evil grimaces, and they wore overalls, and they had their hands crossed behind their backs. There was a hole in their hands where you could insert the peg of a plastic ring and wear them like jewelry. Adult rat finks had 1 hole, and baby rat finks had 2 holes. My brother told me that any time I saw a hole, he would have to punch me in the arm, 1 punch per hole, so the baby rat finks were the more dangerous ones. He always made sure to stick out that middle knuckle so it would hurt more. He called it frogging, I guess because it leaves a green bruise. So there was one game that we played that almost turned deadly. Our family was camping out with friends out in the woods. The other couple had a bunch of kids. We kids were playing with a beach ball and we were tossing it back and forth. I really sucked at that game. Well, one of the kids threw a foul ball and it landed in the woods. It landed in the weeds at the edge of this big round sandy area about 7 feet in diameter. None of the kids went to fetch it, so I helpfully ran across to get the ball. Midway across, I started sinking. I went, "Help! Help! It's quicksand!" kid's worst nightmare is to be sucked under by the quicksand and smothered to death. And now it was actually happening to me. But none of the kids came to help me. They all stood around just laughing at me. I said, "It's quicksand! I'm sinking! I don't want to die!" But they still laughed at me. How could they be so cruel? My fear turned to anger. I can't believe that you all wanted to let me die. The quicksand came up past my knees and up to my thighs, and finally my brother reached out his hand and pulled me out. Mom took me to the showers and washed me off, and on her way back, the kids were saying, "That wasn't quicksand. That's the leaching pond for the septic tank system." I didn't know what that was, and so they said, "You were sinking in people's poop." Ew! Thanks a lot, big brother. Well, our relationship had its ups and downs as we grew up. I mostly communicated with my brother through his various wives and girlfriends. There was one time when we had a bad falling out for a couple of years, which really upset Mom, and she pleaded with us, so we finally started talking again just for her sake. Over time, we gradually became more comfortable with each other. Now my husband and I stay with him and his wife whenever we go back east to visit family. I am so grateful to my brother for taking care of our parents. It's a huge job and very stressful, but he handles it like a saint. We talk on the phone a few times per year. We gripe about politics. We shake our heads over our parents' bad decisions. But other than being really good looking and very modest, my brother and I have nothing in common. So our relationship is still a bit awkward, but we do always end our phone calls with, "I love you."
All right, Sherry, that was Sherry, everybody. So, I don't know about you guys, but I always think about that with quicksand. Like, when I was a kid, there was two ways to die. It was cannibals and quicksand. I was sure that one of those two was going to happen to me, because that's what TV told me. It's not what happened. Okay, so our next storyteller is going to be someone who was told tonight when she walked in the door that she was telling the story, because just that's how it worked. So we all know and love Mimi, and we're going to bring her up to have her tell her story. Oh, do we have pictures for you? There's no pictures, right? You don't need pictures.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I got to show pictures. Yep.
You forgot my pictures.
There we go. What's the cat's name?
Tabby.
Tabby makes sense.
Very imaginative.
All right, let's bring up Mimi, everybody. So Mimi has her words. Mimi, good luck. I know you can do this, Mimi. All right. All right. Let's get it for Mimi.
This is a loose connection, not infinite connection. And this story is about the connections we don't make. I found, at least in my life, that oftentimes if I had to imagine how things are going to play out, I'm oftentimes blown away, either for the positive or for the negative, by how things actually end up. It was my first trip. I was taking it on my own. I had applied to University of Otago, and I was going to be moving to New Zealand for 6 months. I packed my entire life into this backpacking bag. Every single thing was in there that I needed for the next 6 months. And I had a fanny pack. And I left Maryland, and I was ready. I had become obsessed with the Lord of the Rings. Can I get a hey from my LFTRs out there? Okay. I was deep in, so deep in that I was gonna move there. I was like, I'm gonna live here forever, I'm gonna become a hobbit, whatever I need to do. That's as big, that's the only thing I could think about. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I left Maryland and made it all the way to LA, where I was supposed to make my connecting flight to New Zealand. So when I got in there, after waiting 5 hours, a lady comes over the microphone, as they typically do.
Flight 2981 is overbooked. We are looking for volunteers to give up their seats.
I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I'm getting in. I'm getting in about 2 weeks before classes start. YOLO. I raise my hand, I kind of go up to the front desk, and the lady's like, thank you so much. You're the only person that volunteered. Right? Most people were going to New Zealand for a trip that was really time sensitive. They couldn't not miss their flight. They had a booked tour. They were like, we're gonna give you $500 of airfare credit, put you in a hotel, and you can come back tomorrow and catch a flight. I was like, I am crushing this trip, right? First time to LA, I had heard that Elijah Wood lived in LA, and I was gonna find this man and marry him, right? Take a bus to Santa Monica, I go to the Getty, I'm in the airport hotel. So I show up the next morning, ready for my flight. I got my fanny pack on. Now remember, all of my belongings are still in my backpacking bag. I just have a fanny pack. I'm not too dirty yet, it's only day 2. So I go up to the front desk, I'm waiting, and as a woman does,
Flight 75 is overbooked. We are looking for volunteers to give up their seats.
now at this point, I'm like, do I do this? You guys already know, right? If you've heard any of my stories, you know the game. My hand goes up. The lady looks at me, recognizes me, welcomes me to the front desk, and goes, you're gonna be shocked. No one else has given up their seats. Here's $500 for airfare voucher. We're putting you up in a hotel. Here's some meal vouchers. Have a fabulous time in LA. I'm crushing it. I'm officially an LA person. I live here now. I call on my family back home. Like, you guys don't even know how great it is out here, So now it's day 3 of wearing the same outfit I've been going on, and show up in the morning. And as a woman does,
Flight 7586 has become overbooked. We are looking for volunteers.
at this point, I'm getting a little itchy, I had plans. I was gonna become a hobbit, but I couldn't help myself. That hand went up. You guys know the hand went up. The lady recognized me. I go up to the front, and she's like, listen, we're gonna work something out. I'm like, okay. She's like, would you accept, in place of your, regular airfare to New Zealand, a first-class ticket to Australia with a transfer to New Zealand? Now, I didn't paint the portrait of what I looked like then. I had overalls on, dreadlocks. I gave her this look like, is that it? And she was like, oh, and a $500 airfare voucher. I guess I'll accept. I'm sitting in the first class, drinking champagne, looking around at all of my people in the higher class rank on this airplane, make it into Australia, finally making it into Auckland, and I am like, dude, what a way to crush this trip. I'm feeling like a champion with my fanny pack in tow, and I'm day 4 into my trip. And as I'm watching the luggage carousel go around, I'm seeing it get thinner and thinner until there's no luggage left, and my backpacking bag is not there. So I go up to the luggage folks, and they're like, we don't know where it is. I'm like, no, there's only so many places it can be. Just get, where is the bag? And like, we literally don't know where your bag is. I knew it was too good to be true. You know, I was on my high horse, you know, champagne, caviar, living the life, you know. So I said, all right, well, you know what? I can't stay at the airport. I'm gonna take a shuttle. I'll get into town, find a hostel. I'll stay there one night. So I find this hostel. It's late at night. I wake up in the morning and I'm heading downstairs. I walk outside the door and I see people juggling fire, hula hoopers, and in the distance I see a sea of white sails. Turns out it's the America's Cup and the International Busking Festival. I just assumed this is what New Zealand looks like every day, right? I didn't know any of these things were happening. I was amazed. So a week goes by, I finally get my baggage, and I start my adventure finally on the road. My baggage also had missed connections, turns out, and had made its way to Kuala Lumpur, and finally, eventually, made it back to Auckland. So we both had missed connections.
Maybe had practice, she wasn't prepared, and she crushed it. Rhett, one more time for me. We're going to do one more drawing because I know how popular my books are. Who wants to pick one? Let's have you pick one more. One more. Here we go. Okay, we get that person. Here we go. And the winner of the next book is my mom. Jennifer Chen. Jennifer! All right, Jennifer, you get to pick 1, 2, 3, or 5. You've already had 5. What would you like to pick? 3. All right. Okay, you have 3, which is, it's called Funny to Me 2 also. Funny to Me 2. All right, thank you very much. There we go. All right. Our next storyteller is Colleen. And that means, yes, we're going to have, Colleen's going to do her own scrolling because her husband can't quite handle it. All right, bring it up, Colleen. Here we go.
Okay. Can everyone hear me in the back? Yes. Okay. Okay. You guys are all the ones who don't skate, huh?
You got to go right for the mic.
Oh, sorry. Okay. One of my hobbies is, thank you, is genealogy. And I am well aware that no one is as fascinated by my family as I am. So I am not going to tell you about my most recent sleuthing, where I found out that my great-grandfather was a bigamist, was wanted for assault, went by multiple aliases, and the only reason I'm standing here tonight is because he somehow managed to survive the Johnstown, Pennsylvania flood of 1889. I am not going to tell you about that. What I want to share with you is an experience I had while I was digging into a sparsely researched branch of my tree, another branch. And I did what all genealogists are taught, which is you start with what you know. And so I started with the grandfather, and then I went back and back and back, and surprisingly, I was able to go back, and I found my 7th great-grandmother. Her name is Louise. Her parents were French Huguenots. They fled religious persecution from France. They ended up in Switzerland. She one day fell in love, got married, had 2 sons, and that husband dies. She falls in love again, and this husband, number 2, convinces her they need to immigrate to America for a better life, but they have a problem. They don't have enough money for 4 passages on the ship. So they make a deal with the ship's master. They go into debt, which means the boys become pensioners, and when they get to Philadelphia, they will become indentured servants. So
They take a boat, a ship, out of Amsterdam, and they are on the high seas, and husband number 2 falls overboard. All right? At this point in my research, I have fallen in love with Louise. What a strong woman. And here she is, all by herself, with her 2 boys. So imagine this. It is now 1737. She is standing on the docks in Philadelphia. She watches as her 11-year-old's labor is auctioned off to a farmer. Then she watches as her 5-year-old's labor is auctioned off to a button factory owner. She is 42, which is ancient back then. She has no extended family and no English. But I'm not going to tell you the rest of that story. What happened was, it made no sense to me that I could find all of this about her. A 7th great grandmother, this just doesn't happen in genealogy. So how did I do it? What happened was, as I was going back and back and back, I kept seeing images, PDFs, and photographs from the very same book people were citing. And I thought, well, I need this book. I was coveting this book. I was dreaming about this book. I thought, if I have this book, I'll even learn more about my family. And I'm Googling, and where can I buy it, and looking at libraries, and I cannot find this book anywhere. So this goes on for months, and I'm sitting at my desk one day in my genealogy brain, and it was like a magnet pulled me up out of my chair, pulled me through my house from one room to the next, until I'm at the far corner of my house, and I'm standing in front of a glass-fronted bookcase. I open the doors, and I reach to the second shelf on the right, and I pull out a book, and I look at it, and it's the book. And I have this flash of memory. In my 20s, my grandmother had given me a stack of books, and she said, "One day, darling, you might be interested in family history." Well, I wasn't back then. So that stack of books went into the floor of a closet, into boxes from one apartment to the next, to a house, and I packed them away in this bookcase. I didn't even look at the titles. I had what genealogists call, and this is a very technical term, a woo-woo experience. And I don't know if it was divine intervention. I don't know if it was my grandmother. I don't know if it was Louise who guided me to this book. But I will tell you, I am really interested in family history. And why wouldn't I be? My ancestors and all of yours survived famine and flood and fire and war and pandemics and all sorts of diseases and everything else that can doom us on this planet. And when I'm looking at their journeys and I find an everyday hero like Swiss Cheese Louise, her journey informs my own. And it gives meaning to my life, and it gives me perspective. And when I'm having a hard day, I think about that 5-year-old boy walking away from his mother, working at the button factory. It took him 5 years to work off his debt. That was my 6th great grandfather, and I fell in love with him too, and I'm not going to tell you about that story. Oh, I do have pictures, yeah. Okay, so that's the book, and that is my grandmother, who I've talked about a lot here, who gave me the books, and that's my grandfather, who is along that line of Louise. Yeah, all right.
Colleen, everybody. Such a nice story. For those improvisers here, I just want to point out the really good book grab and open of the book. You know, she didn't grab a beer or open a briefcase, but it was, anyway. Okay, so we have one more story tonight, and this comes from our pink-haired English person coming up. Let's give a big round of applause for Claire, everybody. Claire. Let's put that where you want to put that. Here we go. It's Claire, everybody.
I'm a bit challenged. Okay.
Got it. Well done.
Hi, everybody. So tonight, I'm going to get naked and reveal my flabby post-kids perimenopausal, can't say that, body to the love of my life. I'm nervous, thank you. I'm nervous, I'm sweaty, my hands are shaking as I put on my brand new, sexy and very expensive lingerie. I glance down to admire my fancy new bra, and then my stomach sinks at the sight of my flabby stomach. I mean, unfortunately, the stomach didn't sink, and my horrible flabby thighs. I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? Jumping into bed with someone I've not set eyes on for over 30 years. I mean, it's going to take one look at my delightful body and just run screaming for the hills. What the actual fuck am I thinking? So it's 2006, and I'm still living in England, and the love of my life, Mark, and I met, this is going to make me sound really old, in 1976 at a boarding school in England when I was 13 and he was 15. And then we hadn't set eyes on each other for 30 years until I found him again on a British school reunion website back before Facebook and everything. And I sent him an email, a bit drunk one night from the pub, and we've been emailing backwards and forwards, catching up on what we've been doing, because I discovered he'd come and moved to live in California. So a few months of more intense romantic emailing when he declares his undying love. He then books a flight to come over to England so we can meet in person. Well, to be honest, he books a flight to come over so we can have sex, to see if we've still got any teenage chemistry. And I then panic, because obviously I haven't looked after my body very well. So I'm thinking, this does add a new layer, terrifying layer, of meeting your old childhood sweetheart for the first time. So, okay, I think, well, I can't do any more dieting or exercise in the short time I've got available, so maybe I'll just disguise my body under some lovely underwear. So, my trusty credit card in one hand, some newfound courage in the other, I venture out into the terrifying world of intimate ladies' apparel. What a bloody nightmare it is. I mean, nowhere has got bras to fit Madam's fuller figure, as one bloody assistant delicately said. They were either lovely, fancy padded bras for skinny young girls with tiny tits, or kind of more my size, the monstrous over-the-shoulder boulder holders for the type of woman who was not expecting to have any rumpy-pumpy whilst wearing one. So I travel further afield. I think I'm going to have to tell him not to come. What am I going to do? I can't find anything. And then suddenly I find this boutique lingerie store that I hadn't found before, and the owner is just lovely. She's kind, she's gentle, she measures me. What a shocking thing that was. No one had done that before. And then finds me this lovely bra that actually fits. I mean, it lifts and separates in all the right places. And for the first time, probably in my life, I'm thinking, I'm actually proud of my ginormous melons. Oh, it's lovely, I say, glancing down. She says, yes, it does fit you rather well. Is it for a special occasion? Blushing, I admit, that I want this new underwear for the specific, specific, whatever the word is, can't remember that, woman of a certain age, intent of seducing someone I'd not set eyes on for over 30 years. And I realised that I might sound like a little bit of a slut. Bless her, she just rushes off with a lovely little glint in her eye, and then makes me try on some French-style panties, which are higher waisted, they've got lots of lovely lace, and they cover my lovely cellulite bottom, and so much better than those bloody awful G-strings, which just slice you in half, disappear in for lunch, never to be seen again. So here I am, wearing this gorgeous, sexy, very bloody expensive underwear, never spent so much on underwear in my life, driving to meet Mark for the very first time. I arrive at our meeting place, my heart's thumping, my hands are sweaty, I haven't got butterflies, I think I've got demented bats in my stomach. And I see this figure standing in the distance, and he's wearing an Aran sweater, thick, it's quite cold, it's January, and a blue woolly bobble hat. And for some reason, it makes him look like a bank robber. I think, what am I doing? Well, I don't know this guy, really. Haven't seen him for that long. I mean, what am I doing? I shouldn't let him into my car. But without waiting for an invitation, he just opens the door and sits down next to me. And then I'm struck anew with another fresh set of worries, like, what is the etiquette for meeting someone you haven't seen for 30 years? Should we hug? Should we kiss? I haven't got a clue. So I go a bit shy and I just put the car in gear and drive him home. Don't do any of it. We get to my house, we chat for a bit, we sit on the sofa, and then eventually we start kissing quite politely. Then it gets much more passionate, and eventually we go upstairs to my bedroom. So I'm quite excited because I've got the lovely lingerie. So I go and light the candles I strategically placed earlier in the day. And when I turn round, thinking we're going to have this lovely sensual moment, we're going to undress each other, he's going to reveal my thing, I find he's already got himself naked, just like that, ripped off all his bloody clothes, and he's just looking at me. I'm thinking, oh God, I've got to undress myself. So with much sucking in of my non-existent stomach muscles, I take off my t-shirt and my jeans, revealing my gorgeous underwear. So I'm expecting him to go, well, something like, oh gosh, Claire, you're so beautiful. By the way, what delightful underwear. But no, doesn't do that at all. He just doesn't say anything. He just turns around, lifts up the duvet, and gets into bed on my side. I'm thinking, bloody hell. So I quickly go round to the other side of the bed and hide myself under the covers. Now, before I have a chance to say anything, he reaches for me, quickly undoes my bra, and discards the most expensive item of underwear I've ever bloody purchased without a backward glance. Same with my panties. I want to shout, oi, do you know how much those cost? Later, much later, I ask him, did you like my new underwear? And he goes, well, I'm really sorry, Claire. I've got really bad eyesight, and in your candlelit bedroom, I couldn't see a bloody thing. Christ, all that waste of time. Anyway, after the initial rush to get naked, he now takes his time, and he's passionate and skillful and, sensitive and very generous. And I'm just cringing, obviously, because I don't have any underwear. I'm completely exposed. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I wish I was thinner. Wish my boobs didn't fall into my armpits, and I'd wished I'd trimmed my lady garden. He doesn't seem to notice nor care. He's often stopping what he's doing, and he's visiting every bloody part of me to say how sexy and gorgeous he finds me. So, obviously, I marry him. Not too many of those around. And we've now been married over 17 years, and I actually moved to America with my 2 kids to be with him. He's just sitting there. And because of his absolute adoration and, acceptance of me as I am, despite the fact that obviously I don't have the J-Lo body yet, it helps me to actually accept myself as I am. And now I can actually, and I do, walk stark naked in front of him, not caring that my body has headed south with all the restraint of a dog chasing a squirrel. Thank you. Oh, yes.
Claire with big hair. Wow, amazing. Those are some amazing stories we heard tonight. We had 8 wonderful storytellers. I think we've heard the word tits tonight more than I think in most events. Oh, there's some pictures. Oh, that's right. There we go. He's the one on the left. There we go. Pictures. And there they are now. And there he is right there. There we go. Would you flip one more? There we go. You're hired. So everybody, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. This has been our 21st show. We have a new one coming up on the 13th of March. The theme is Tipping Point. If you want to be on the mailing list, there's a QR code here. If you want to be on our Facebook page, is there. That's our website if you want to tell a story. I'm Gary Rudman. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. And let's have all the storytellers come up for a picture.